Call the January 11th meeting to order. Roll call.
Davis?
Here.
Aaron's?
Here.
Ogleski?
Here.
Herman?
Here.
Michelson?
Here.
Miller? Rule?
Here.
Schuessler?
Here.
Wooler?
Here. Okay, approval of November 9th meeting minutes. Any additions, corrections?
Yeah, I have just one here. That was on the third page on the left side, down about it way. It should say Chairman Wohler.
Oh, yeah. We're trying to tell you something, Jim.
Yeah, I've been chairman.
Vote it again, he's told, huh?
Are you firsting it as amended?
Pardon?
Are you firsting it as amended?
Yeah,
I'll second.
motion as amended.
Okay, motion to accept the amendments. You got it?
Yep, we did.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I was, as a matter of fact. Nice little nap.
You're pretty good with your eyes open, yeah.
Yeah. Citizen statement none, park business, discuss recommend lease agreement extension for concession stand operation.
This is our standard lease agreement that we've had with the Fraternal Order of Eagles at the Spanbauer Field. Nothing major to change. The last concession agreement we had with them was for a 2-year span, and we talked with the Eagles, and they are interested in doing the same 2 years. As stated in my memo, the city receives annual rent in the amount of $1,000 or 10% of the gross revenues, whichever is greater for the year. And it's typically between that 1,000, depending on the summer, they have 12, 13, sometimes up to 1,500, so it varies based on the season they have. So it's been a working agreement that we've had with them since 1996. Things be going well, and we're recommending that the board recommend this to the council for approval.
Ray, I just have a question. Do we have any city-owned equipment in there that they use? No. Okay. I'm just thinking replacement costs and things back to the city if we're staying at the same fee rate.
Yeah, we do, because we do the REITs Fields concession stand, and we do have a separate fund for the REITs concession setup, so that I think.
I'm just going to ask, this is a kind of a newbie on the Parks Board. Do we have any contracts with like vendors that they have to use certain products and out of only those products? And
Not when a group like this is utilizing the concessions, and then Jenny will operate our concessions. She'll put out for bids the product, or she'll go to the food shows and get the best bids. And then what she'll do is work on those through the pool and all the concessions and amusement areas. And I think the golf course utilizes a lot of the same vendors too for
okay,
reduction in pricing, so.
good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Have a motion,
Make a motion to accept the proposal?
Second.
roll call.
Davis?
Aye.
Aaron's?
Aye.
Ogleski?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Michelson?
Aye.
Rule?
Aye.
Schuessler?
Aye.
Wooler?
Aye. Discuss establishing fees for special events utilizing park facilities.
All right, as I stated in my memo to the board, if you recall back in 2014, the board had some initial discussion of this item, and what we did as staff, we put together, talked to some of the other communities, and found out how they handle special events that come into the parks. We recently did another checking on some of the municipalities, so I have some additional information to share. The Common Council has been receiving and continues to receive concerns from citizens, whether it's shelters not being available for community use during some of the larger special events, boat launch areas potentially when there's other special events going on. And at a recent Common Council meeting, they did ask the board to consider looking at establishing a special event use fee for the facilities. So what I did is I went back to our minutes from 2014, and you had those in your packet just to see what some of the discussion took place. At that point, I know the board was not in favor of what we had recommended. We talked about it again as staff and feel it's it's easy to administer this type of a fee if we handle it the way we're recommending, and I think it's probably the fairest way. If you take a look at some of the other communities that may just charge a flat fee for use of the park, for community or special events, their fees vary quite considerably. We could take a look at getting some additional information on that for you, but in some of the discussions that the council had on that evening when they said that they'd like the board to look at this again, one of the council members said, I run a special event. If there's a fee that I know I have to pay, I know that I need to somehow budget for that and pass it on to whether it's participants in the event or vendors or whatever it might be. So he understands that, there's concern with coming up with the extra money, but he also feels that because of the facilities not being able to be utilized by the community, that there should be some type of fee that should be recouped. So I gave you some information, an example, if somebody used South Park on a weekend for a 2-day event, what that might be. If it was utilizing the park where all the shelters were not available, there'd be a cost of about $440 for the 2 days of their event if we required them to rent out all the shelters. I did not take a look at Menominee Park because it really varies at Menominee Park based on the size of the park, depending on what areas they're using and which shelters wouldn't be available. But I did also throw in here because there was some discussion that if an event is utilizing Menominee Park or Rainbow Park, some of those that have the bigger boat launches, the council would also like us to look at trying to recoup some of the lost revenue that may take place during those special events. Taking a look at the last couple of years at boat launch, we can give you a general idea on a monthly basis. I just took a look last week. May and June typically are probably our highest revenue producers. July and August, it kind of slows down because I think the fishing is not as good, but also some of the, at Miller's Bay, for example, with all the softball taking place, there's probably less boat launching going on there. But then once we get into September is another month where it's high utilization. So it's really hard to come up with a daily average, but then you take a look at holidays and weekends, and we know that we bring additional or more revenue in on those days than on a typical weekday. So we can come up with some general numbers. Willing to take a look at that. And then the other discussion item, I guess, that I'd like to throw out there is typically the special event season that we look at those venues being available to the community where if we don't want to charge throughout the entire year, January through December for special events, maybe look at April through October for events take place, because that's typically the shelter rental time, the boat launch time. Events that maybe take place out of that, I'll give you an example of, the events that are going to take place in February at Miller's Bay. Typically, it's not an issue of not getting in and out on the ice or on the boat launches or having shelters available because it's not an issue at that point. So a couple discussion items. We're open for ideas, but again, as staff, we did take a look at it and felt that our original proposal is something we feel is fairly easable to administer. Just give you an idea, I did have Kathy Snell, who's our special events coordinator, took a look at a couple of area communities. She had calls into Appleton, Greenville, Neenah, Green Bay, Menasha, Fond du Lac, and Kimberly. All of those communities except for one charge a special event application fee. So if you're running a special event, just to fill out the application fee or the application, the municipality charges a fee. Currently, the city of Oshkosh does not. The council, when we established the policy and the ordinance, or when they established it, decided not to charge an application fee at that time. So all the other communities do charge an application fee. There are additional user fees based on the size of the event, like I had stated. Greenville is one of those, and I pulled up their fee information just to give you an idea. In Greenville, they pay the $25 application fee. Small events, what they look at a small event is 500 to 1,000 people. They charge $150. A large event, 1,000 to 3,000, they charge $600. And at anything over 3,000 attendees, they look at $1,200. Where they come up with those fees, I don't know. And like I said, we could take a look at different communities and give you different fees. Madison is another one that we had some information on, just to give you an idea. They have a park special event application fee of $50. And then again, based on the size and the complexity of the event, it's anywhere from $200 to $1,500 per day for that special event. So it's going to be all over the board when you look at trying to establish some of these fees, and we can get some additional fee information from other communities. So we're open for discussion. If there's some discussion we'd like to have on our proposal of charging, for the shelters and the boat launch areas that are utilized. We don't have it on you for action tonight, so I guess I'm open for some discussion from the board.
Bill?
My question is for Steve. It says here the common council requested that we visit this again. Can you inform us a little more?
Well, it was during the budget process, Bill, and the discussion was the lost revenue. When you have a big event, like, let's just take Sawdust Days, none of the shelters can be rented out. But they don't pay for the shelters, so that's lost revenue to the city.
Okay, but do the events give back to the city?
Some do, some don't.
Sawdust Days.
Sawdust Days has paid for some, I believe, electrical equipment, some other things that benefited or helped pay towards Celebration Lights, I believe. They've done some.
They've done some electrical upgrades in the past.
Take like last year, they held a rodeo on one of the softball diamonds. What happens if there would have been somebody wanted to have a softball tournament? They couldn't use that facility. The boat launch is gone for
Right.
a week. Lost revenue of all the boats going in.
Well,
So I think council's not saying it's got to be, for every shelter lost, we got to recoup the total amount, but I think they should pay some loss for the lost revenue that the city's incurring.
I'm not
Because the taxpayers of Oshkosh are paying for all these facilities.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of people that go to Sawdust Days or go to I think it's Mad Dog's production at South Park when they have the cars and cars showing art thing and all that. But there should be, I believe, some type of a cost added to that for the loss of the revenue for the use of the facilities.
because I can see like Sawdust Days says, okay, we've got to pay these fees now, so we're not going to give any money towards the city, we'll just pay the fees. So it's going from here over to here.
Yeah, I get that. I just, the council's looking more at the dollars and cents, the lost revenue and the fact that, we're losing revenue constantly on the state side, that we'd like to make sure that at least our facilities, when they are being used by a user group that takes away other revenue, that there is some compensation for that lost revenue. They didn't come up with a specific dollar amount or anything like that. I think like Ray has, I think anytime the shelters are available for rental and the event takes them away, during that time frame is when it would be appropriate to ask for some compensation for the loss of revenue.
I can see at South Park, there'd be a problem because say they're not using the east end of it.
Right.
And everything down there. But with an event going on at the west end, there's no parking because everybody's parked around there. So nobody's going to rent that shelter anyway.
Right. And then you take, as he mentioned, the softball tournaments, at the Reeds Diamonds, it's really hard to get in and out. So boat launch people don't go there.
Right.
So then you look at that revenue being lost, and then they move over to a different launch.
Right, so you lose revenue at that launch, but it's
That
transferred over to another launch.
Very well, or
so
they'll
the
end
city's
up at a
not-
county launch or somewhere else and pay that fee. So,
But if they've got a boat launch, I've got a sticker
Yeah.
in mind, I'm not gonna go to the county, to launch, I'll go to a different boat launch. So,
but that's the general consensus was the lost revenue, that the council felt that there should be some compensation for the larger events that take up all of the facilities, even though they may not use them. And I'll use the county parks for an example. Whenever there's a big event, the county charges them for use of the shelters, whether they use them or not. They charge them per, and the same thing at the Expo Center. They charge, if your event takes more than 50% of the Expo Center, you're going to get billed for other facilities because they can't book another event at that location because of your event.
okay, so you're saying that like Life Fest out at County Park,
They
Life
rent
Fest
all,
has to pay for the shelters that are over in
they
County
lock
Park.
them so nobody can use them.
Okay.
And incur any other added expenses because there's a cost to clean the bathrooms and stuff like that to users.
Trish, how many events really shut down a park? Sawdust Days, the art fair at South Park.
The motorcycle show, the car show.
The Menominee Park is basically one,
We have a list of, I'm sorry.
one that shuts down Menominee, and the rest of them shut down South Park.
I'm trying to think. Wait, I have a list of special events I can send you.
We have a list, maybe we do have from 2014 in the minutes, because we did send a letter out to those special events.
Right, but I don't think you listed the,
Yeah, I know we have it, I know we have a list in our office, and we can provide that list, but I think, I want to say it was about 6 to 7 special events between South Park mainly and Menominee Park. So it's,
I can only think
Outdoor
of,
races, we take off some of the park.
The what?
The outdoor races over there.
Labor Day. Yeah, that would shut down the boat launch.
And are any of these nonprofits? All of these are for-profit groups, correct?
No.
Some of them are nonprofit.
I would say the majority are nonprofit.
Because here it states that a special event is not intended to include events such as family gatherings or nonprofit organization, business, or company picnics.
Which one are you looking at?
Sorry, it is June 9, 2014 minutes. I think that is some that you stated. So I just had a question when I was looking this over this afternoon. Because for some reason I was thinking maybe Sawdust Days was nonprofit, but maybe it is profit. I don't.
No, I think they have a 501c3. So they're nonprofit.
They are
They're nonprofit, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just questioning now because this is stated that that does not include nonprofit, so what are we saying here then? Because some of them are, right?
I think that's probably the whole problem right there. They are nonprofit organizations, you got 5 or 6 things. I want to know how much the city is going to take in from this if we did say, okay, we'll charge for every one of them. What's the city going to get out of it? $2,000, $3,000? Big deal. Talk about nitpicking. I think the council better go look for something else besides $2,000 or $3,000.
Well,
Besides that, most of these organizations are, well, the majority of them are giving back to the city and giving them the money anyway.
Well,
But if you're
I'd like
talk-
to see that too, but I guess I have one question, is what other resources do we spend? I mean, is this fee going to include like labor, like additional man hours and things like that go there? I mean, so,
this is strictly a rental fee.
so this is a rental fee, so we're not going to lump in labor or anything else, and, okay.
No, if you're a special event, if we incur extraordinary services, such as manpower above and beyond what we normally do, we charge the special event
Okay.
for that. So that's,
At your meet here, we met here last month, and every special event, and you get charged for everything. You get $4 for a sign, this much for that. And I don't have a, well, not that it makes any difference, I don't have a big problem with that. I also don't have a big problem with a boat launch. But that's not, that you're talking about revenue loss and everything else. That isn't even going back to the city, that's going in a special account just for boat launches. So that money just stays for boat launches.
Right.
But I don't have a problem with that for Otter Street for one, for Battle, for any of them like that. If you take the whole boat launch up, fine, you can pay for that. That you're gonna recoup anyway, because if you've got a event that takes up, that's got 300 boats and they're gonna take, they're paying for that anyway, that's coming.
Right.
That I don't have a problem with. I do have a problem with starting to charge for everything if it was a big deal. But I don't think it's a big deal, like I said. I want somebody to come and tell me exactly how much the city's gonna get for this. If it's a couple $1,000s a year, I don't agree with it at all.
And my question is still, so are we talking, I mean, as I'm reading this and understanding this, it would not include nonprofits.
I need to go back at that and check that, because nonprofits are charged special event costs. Just about any special event that takes place in the city is a nonprofit, basically.
Okay.
And they are charged. So I need to go back and look at that, and if maybe that needs to be clarified, but I'm not sure.
Wherever you got that, if that was written in there, then none of us should be paying anything, because I don't know of any that are really profit organizations.
Okay, and that's why I was kind of confused, like, why are we, because it sounds like these are mostly nonprofits, so why are we talking about this if So, okay, all right.
I do have an opinion, though, if the special event is taking money away from the shelter, that is the taxpayers' money. And the special event is making, is penalizing the taxpayer by not using that facility and us collecting the revenue. So I do believe in user fees, as long as we keep them fair. I think the user fees charge the appropriate people. You know, so it's not a burden where we're not continually adding burdens to the taxpayers all the time by saying, use Menominee Park, but the entire city pays for it. If you're going to use the entire Menominee Park, then that group should pay for it. I do believe that. By taking that money away, you're forcing everybody in the city to pay for that event. I don't think that's fair. That's my 2 cents.
Bill?
You brought up a good point about the boat launches. Let's look at Sawdust Days, where they do plug up that boat launch. You can't get to it.
Right.
Now, you're gonna collect, you'd come up with a fee for that group, for the boat launch. Is that money gonna go into the boat launch fund? Or is it gonna go into that general fund? If you're collecting it, if you're charging them for the boat launch, for not using a boat launch, that money should go to the boat launch fund then.
I would agree with that, but that would be something we'd talk to our finance director and city manager on, but that would be my intention as well.
Okay, as long as we're clear on that, if we go forward.
And we'll have that discussion before the next meeting and get some clarification, but that would be my hope, because it is boat launch money that we are losing,
Right.
so,
That's what.
But I can't speak
10,000
for-
a weekend we losing?
yeah.
And that's probably the biggest cost of all of them, is the boat launch,
That's going to be
right?
quite a lot of money.
Because how much is the gazebo, or how much is
You got
that?
that in here, what are they?
Gazebo's 50,
$45 a day for the gazebo, yeah.
The larger shelters are 65, the medium ones are 55.
Yeah, where you're looking at the boat launch is $500. So that's your biggest cost, and that isn't even going, well, anyway, that isn't going back, that's in a separate fund. But I never thought of the other thing, was like, if somebody has a baseball tournament, are they paying $500? Which I don't think is fair either, because the baseball diamonds are there, the boat launches were there. I don't think they should be charged anything, a baseball tournament, because that was part of the, as far as I'm concerned, that's still a shared boat launch. You know, I don't think they should have to pay $500.
And we expanded the parking for the boat launch, took some away from the baseball. So, yeah, I don't think,
If you have a softball tournament at REITs, we charge for the concession stand just like a shelter. They're paying a daily $65 fee for the use of that concession stand. Currently, we do not charge a diamond or a facility use. That is something we will be talking about in the future at this board, is facility use fees. That's very not typical of any community, not to charge. If you're going to come in as a facility or a user and want to use 3 or 4 diamonds or 2 diamonds, to not pay a facility reservation is virtually unheard of in the area, and we need to have a take a look at it.
That's a user fee, you're paying for something that you're using. You're not paying for something across the street because nobody can park there. You're not paying for the gazebo for a ball diamond. You don't understand what
No, I understand what you're saying.
I'm saying. If you're using the facility, like the ball diamonds, that's the different kind of fee. But you don't have to pay for the gazebo over there, because you figure nobody's gonna use it, because
We can still
Ball
rent that
diamond.
gazebo out if there's a ball diamond going on. We do all the time during the summer. So it's the availability is still there to rent it out. If somebody, and we'll talk about Sawdust Days or something at South Park, a lot of those special events, you cannot rent out a lot of the facilities, the shelters, because there is not availability for parking or people to get to those shelters.
well, I think there's some things we've got to get straightened away. First, the not-for-profit, get
Oh,
that language.
that was just a mistake. They can't put that in there, because then nobody's gonna pay.
Right.
That was just a mistake that Ray made and put it in there. And
We gotta get
Trish
that
made.
no, Ray. Vic,
Well, supposedly Oshkosh has this thing, we're supposed to be the event city. And the events do provide a service to the taxpayer by providing them with entertainment. I mean, you're giving something back to them in the form of entertainment, and I think we should encourage events rather than, discourage them.
I agree. And if this was a big deal, you could probably go along with it, but I want Ray or somebody, I'm not saying Trish, I want Ray to figure it out.
I had those numbers from back in, I have the numbers from back in 2014 when we talked about it. We basically ran the numbers saying this is what we'd bring in. It's not a large amount, but I go back to the Common Council getting concerns from citizens. If they want to have an activity, I'll pick out July 2nd. They can't have an event on a certain day because there's a festival going on. So there's the availability factor for the residents, whether or not it's monetary or not, the availability for the tax-paying residents isn't there.
I just had a group come in just last week asking about July 2nd or 3rd at Menominee, and we couldn't use it. We're not happy.
So I think it's just not all revenue and dollars related. I think there's legitimate concerns out there, whether it's boat launch, and we hear those, as well as shelters.
Barry?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to see, some of the numbers of how much money would we make from this, but also what kind of burden would it potentially put on, some of these groups, and that'll tell us, especially if we do the boat launch fees too and all of these. I don't know if you have it from the other year, but, or otherwise, if you did it for this year, just as long as it's fairly current. Because that's gonna show us a lot, of what those amounts are, which I think is gonna be important. The other question, the clarification, we talked about this, about the special events. So if somebody has a special event and you said there's no fee for the application,
Correct.
and let's say if they don't need special police or any other kind of special, fees that would be required, it doesn't cost them anything?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't realize that. I was thinking there was a fee or something.
Well, when you say it doesn't cost them anything, to have a special event in this city, you have to have liability insurance.
Okay. Yeah, I know that.
There's a lot of other
Yep.
things that you have to have
Yep.
that do cost you money. Liability insurance costs you, well, I don't know about anybody else, but
Health permits.
health permits, it costs you a lot of money.
Okay. There's a lot of other fees that are.
There's fees that you have to go through. If you got a generator, you gotta get a permit. If you got,
Okay.
there's a lot of different things.
And then the other thing, if we were to do this, I could definitely see, maybe waiving the fee during some of the winter months, that would make sense, that kind of thing. But the other item that we talked a little bit about is, what I'd be concerned about is if, and like Bill brought this up, if we had an event, let's say like at South Park, and you were talking about the East Shelter, that it maybe, if we were to do this, that there could be something about the discretion of the Parks Director or something, that certain shelters could be waived, in an event or something, if they felt they didn't, heed the, cause a problem for that area of the park, something, if there was something in there like that, where, because every event's a little different, and even there's gonna be future events that we don't know about, that aren't even on our radar, that, I would, if we were to do this, I would hate to see this, if you're out in the east end of South Park, get charged for something that's not even near you, so I guess that's my other concern. But I still have reservations whether this is even needed at all, kind of like from before. But like I said, the revenue thing would be real important to see what impact that would be.
Mr. Miller.
I guess I want everybody to think long-term. I think we're doing a magnificent job of improving these facilities, the bathrooms, the ball diamonds, the biking trails, all of these things. Everybody seems to be minimizing these fees as being, just small monetary items. Over the years, they add up. But I do believe we should be charging diamond fees, and we all know I'm for as many diamonds as we can get. But we're improving these fields. These fields look wonderful. The bathrooms look wonderful. if maybe these fees could be put into a maintenance fund or something, because 30 years from now, we're gonna have to replace all this stuff. And I'm sorry, we're becoming a fee-driven society, and 30 years from now, the city isn't gonna have any more money than it's got today. And those are just simple facts. So I mean, all of these things that we're gonna do are gonna require maintenance. And by the people using these things should be paying the freight for them. I believe the softball and baseball players should be paying fees to maintain these facilities. These facilities are gonna get better. We've got a lot of neat projects in the capital improvement budget, and I'm sorry, nobody likes fees, but that is the only way we're gonna keep this stuff looking decent, these facilities looking nice. So I just hope you guys think long-term that, you know, the $5,000 or $6,000 we get a year, you put that into a fund, somewhere down the road, that's gonna help maintain some of this.
That isn't what we're talking about, though. You're talking about user fees. That we already got, and that I think everybody's going for.
No, I'm talking
I don't
about
think we
fees
do have
across the
enough.
board. I'm talking about
Well, we
fees
don't
across the
have
board.
enough across the board, but we do have them.
Right. We got two
But this-
And we've
examples.
got user fees, and that everybody agrees with, user fees.
But in
And
a-
that's why the boat launch works out so good, because all the money from the boat launch, which we get a lot of, goes in a separate fund. Doesn't go into the general fund, goes into a separate fund. We got enough money for them boat launches right now where nobody has to fork out a bunch of money for boat launches. So that's where you're right. Same with the ball diamond. If they charge for all the ball diamonds, put that in another fund. And I agree with that. But that isn't what we're talking about, is user fees.
We
This
are.
is
We really are.
This
Right.
is non-user fees.
Right. But what I'm saying is, we are becoming a fee-driven society.
Right.
And I do agree that if you use South Park for an event and you tie up the whole park, there should be a payment to the city. I absolutely agree with that.
And that's kind of, well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that's really kind of where I think the council's going, is that technically, because you can't rent it, even though they're not using it, their event should pay some type of fee for that closure of that facility, because it's not available to the community to rent out. And that, in a sense, is a user fee, because they're using the park for their event, and it's costing the city the opportunity to use it for something else. And again, I'm not saying, and they didn't come up, there was no discussion of dollar amounts and that, but and just looking back over the minutes, that, we got sent out, there was some discussion back on that June 9th about what sawdust days is all donated to the city or has contributed, about they have given generators and electrical and things like that. That there was also some other concerns about, that it would cost them more money, obviously sawdust days. But I don't think the council was looking to make it a big hindrance to these organizations, but just that they need to be aware that they're taking, using some of the facilities that other people can't. And is there a lot of them? Probably not. Would I want to hold an event at, say, the Kiwanis Shelter during, sawdust days? Probably not. It would be loud and inconvenient, and, how it'd be hard for my group to get there and all that because of what's all going on there. Or, would you want to rent a shelter for a family reunion at South Park when the car show and the art fair is going on? Probably not. But yet, at the same time, they're getting used to that whole facility and not really paying for it.
Does, during sawdust, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I remember we talked about a lot of times someone comes in and requests a spot and then they can't use that one, but then they find a different spot in a different park. So going back to your example, Trish, that you had from last week, did we find a different spot for them in a different park, or did that group just decide not to have their event in an Oshkosh park at all, and so now that is truly lost revenue?
I let him know what was available, and then he went back and he's gonna
Okay.
talk to his group and then
Okay.
see if that's bad, or they can pick a different date, but.
I remember that was part of the reason why we had a hard time deciding what to do, is because oftentimes they just move to a different facility. So, okay.
And I mean, I get that, it's a principle thing, I mean, they're using it, somebody's using it, someone should be paying something for it. I'm kind of for that. I mean, I think that the rate should be reasonable. And I guess I think looking a little more long-term, just in a different direction though, but, so where do we get, what if we have 10 more nonprofits that want to have events in different parks, and then we truly have, just tons of these weekends that are just, where do you draw the line? And
Well, how much of the
So-
park's being used Labor Day weekend for that barbecue fest? That's in Menominee Park. That's going to take the whole park, isn't it?
No, we're looking, the grass space right out in front of Bella Vista, where the old soccer field was. Essentially, it'll be fenced in and contained in that area.
Okay.
So I guess when I look at it as, the parks are for our public, I get that, that makes sense. I mean, that's not fair for a group to be able to, but is there some way to even, like with in kind? So I mean, we have, and I don't know what Sawdust Days does or gives at this point, but like an in-kind fee, if they're giving back, and, do you know what I'm saying? Whatever that's worth to the park? Or does that just
Put a
make it
monetary
messy?
value on what they give back and
Yeah.
take it off their,
Right. I mean, maybe that just makes it too messy, but,
We can look at that. We've had some discussion with other communities when we have our regional meetings, and when you start picking and choosing certain groups to charge a fee and not charge a fee, and I think actually the council said they want to be consistent, every group should be charged a uniform fee
Oh,
for
yes,
those.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
it gets difficult, and I understand, the point of, all right, some groups donate. There's other groups that don't donate to us, and they're not paying for that. So
right.
it gets difficult in that case then.
Oh, no, and I am for across the board, but what I'm saying is, I guess sometimes in my line of work, when there's something's going on, sometimes someone, instead of paying with cash, it's an in-kind, do you know what I'm saying? They're giving you a service, so they're still paying for it, it's just in a different sense. But like I said, maybe that just makes it too messy.
We could probably spend all night here talking about this, but I think Terry's online with, how much money are we talking about? Let's find out, bring it back to the next meeting, and are we talking $10,000? Are we talking $2,000,
Going off memory, I can say it's between $2,000 and $4,000, I believe, is what I seem to recall. But we can definitely have that number. It's not a large sum, but I think it goes back to the principle. And again, we always look at how different communities do things and how we have to evolve to that, because when we are trying to improve facilities, we just don't have the revenue coming in. Our guys are spending on certain things a lot of time cleaning facilities after the special events, and we're not recuperating any of that cost. So there's also those indirect costs that we need to
I
look at.
thought you said you did. You did charge the groups.
For extraordinary costs, for the special events, yes. What I'm saying is for special, softball, fishing tournaments, if there's garbage out there, our guys are out there cleaning up garbage. We can't say this was from the fishing tournament, this wasn't. So if it's extraordinary police services, if we have, through parks, if we're hauling picnic tables or putting up fencing, stuff like that. Or for a bigger event, if we know they should have had more dumpsters, we're saying, get groups out here to help clean. Our guys are still gonna be picking up things because we can't pinpoint it's coming from special events. So there's extraordinary costs that we don't recoup. Cleaning restrooms after the events, if they're not cleaned up well, we go in there and clean restrooms, so.
How about the Festival of Lights out there? Are they charge a fee, or would they be charged a fee?
At this
They
point,
shut- They shut the park down and they charge admission. Where does that money go to?
well, that I could say nobody's gonna go out there and have a picnic this time of the year.
No, I know.
Then I go along, hey, if I go along with any of this, I go along with the part where you aren't gonna charge in the middle of winter for the park.
No, but I say they're charging for it. They're charging $8 a head to go through the park. Where's that money going?
some of it comes back donations to help us upgrade some of the electrical facilities. A lot of it goes into their own costs of upgrading for facilities, or their show next year. A lot of it goes into their shows for the future years.
Anything else? We'll have another meeting on this, baby.
And I bet you we might have some people in the audience.
Okay. Park Director's report.
With the holidays and everything, it's just been the end of the year, getting things wrapped up. What we did prior to the holidays, we actually had a all-department staff meeting for about an hour and a half, and what I intend to do is bring that entire report to this board, showing the major accomplishments through Parks, Forestry, Cemetery. Some of you may not even know, but Senior Center is part of the Parks Department as well, so you'll see stuff from Senior Center, Golf Course, special events. And so we'll give you that report next month, and you'll see kind of things that we took care of in 2015. It gives you a good listing, but also looking at 2016, we took a look at major projects, CIP items that we'll be taking a look at. So it kind of gives you the outlook for the year coming up as well. So.
Okay. Chad.
I don't have much to add right now, besides December was a great month for us, just because we didn't have snow and freezing temps. We were able to do a lot of project work or keep going continuations. For example, we got the area around the otter exhibit excavated and gravelled, ready to go for concrete for around next spring. The carousel, actually, this past couple weeks, one was nice. We got to tear that down due to the repairs we got to make with the bearings and the mast with that. So it was just a great month for us to work on other items that generally you don't get a chance to do come this time of year. So it's just been a good for that. Now we're in the snow and cold, and we got a list of indoor projects, but we also have trying to keep going on some of the exterior stuff that we have, plus starting to implement some of our CIP projects and planning here as we go forward. So that's all I have right now. So.
Okay. You're gonna have stuff on that next meeting, right, on the special events?
Yep.
All right,
Make a motion, I'll make it.
Seconded.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Amy,
Nobody.
if you wouldn't talk so much, these meetings